Came back in the 7th book. But yeah, he's still out there. I'm hoping. Yeah, he was a lot of fun. I don't think I was, when I originally was writing book 5, I didn't expect him. That's a good example of a character who definitely jumped on the stage and was very charismatic, and I definitely have to do more with him.
Were you going to get a good chunk of his backstory?
Maybe. I do know what it is. I don't really have a story to go with it yet, but I do. There are hints, if you pick up on some of the hints, like the fact that he's from Rhode Island and things like that.
If he wants to tell
If
it.
he wants to tell it, or if I want to tell it. I need the story. That's the thing. Ideas are kind of out there. There's a lot of ideas out there, but finding the story that's the best way to tell the idea can be challenging. Okay. There's a question in back.
I think I was the first person to raise the question. To raise my hand. Couldn't see me. What the question ends up being is, how do you pronounce the dragon's name in the YA book?
Artigal.
Oh. I mean, I'm pronouncing it in my mind like something out of Latin, Artie, and it just comes across as a hippie name in my mind.
Yeah, I pronounce it Artigal, and he's named after a character in the Fairy Queen. So I'm pretty sure you can figure out how to pronounce it from the meter, and I'm not remembering it right, but that's how I've been pronouncing it.
I've just got the first book, so I haven't read it yet. I'm looking forward to it, and I love that idea of a supernatural call-in radio show. And it seems really original, but as the series sits in book 9.
Yeah, this is book 8, and I'm working on 9.
And I understand, it's werewolves and vampires.
And anything else I decide to put in.
Do you find it hard to come up as you've written so many books, original ideas involving werewolves and vampires? Since there seems to be almost like we were talking about Twilight, maybe like a surface, like just almost every other book is like novel or movie or TV series of a vampire or werewolf. And I love your idea of talking. That's something different to do, but do you find it a challenge since you're dealing with that genre that's just so many people are doing it?
Yeah, that's kind of it's a good question. It's complex because there's a lot going into it, and part of the thing is the reason a lot of that is so popular is because a lot of people actually like the conventional ideas. So you have to kind of decide how different you want to be, or I know a lot of people write them conventionally because they like the convention. I am trying to do some new and different things, or at least be snarky about it. I made my main character a werewolf because I was pretty sure I didn't have anything new to say about vampires. When I started the series, this is what's funny. I wrote the first kitty story about 10 or 11 years ago now. And even at the time, I thought vampires were kind of boring and I didn't have anything to say about them. Werewolves are kind of untapped territory, even still, because up until recently, we really only had one werewolf story. It was kind of the Lon Chaney, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, beast within, struggling to get out, wrecking terrible violence, oh, the tragedy, die horribly, the end. And that was pretty much the werewolf story that we had, and nobody had really done anything different. If the werewolf was the hero, he was going to die tragically. If the werewolf was the villain, he was going to kill a lot of people and then die with our trusty hero shooting him with a silver bullet. So I thought there were actually a lot more possibilities with having a werewolf main character, just from the sheer fact of getting past that. It's like, okay, she's a werewolf, get over it, move on. Let's have some other problems now. Another thing that a lot of people are actually bringing in, but pack dynamics. If werewolves are anything like natural wolves, do they live in packs? How does that work when you have beings who are half human, half wolf? So that's a fun way to play with it as well. Pretty early on in the series, I realized I couldn't draw a boundary line. over what I included and what I didn't. I started working on this scene where Kitty was going to debunk a TV psychic, and then I realized that in a world with vampires and werewolves, TV psychics might very well be genuine and be real. And what are we going to do with that? And you know, at that point, the sky is kind of the limit. You know, especially one of my projects and one of the things I want to keep doing is rooting it in the real world as much as I can. You know, so much of this stuff is sort of based on this premise that vampires and werewolves are real and they're among us in the real world. But surprisingly few of these stories actually deal with real world issues. Kind of a nice segue into the newest book, Kitty Goes to War. Kitty doesn't actually go to war, but she helps a trio of werewolf soldiers returning from Afghanistan. Because if there were vampires or werewolves, the military would find a way to use them. And what are the implications of that, especially if they come home suffering from post-traumatic stress? And so that's one of the ways that I do it. You know, in the second book, The Senate Holds Hearings on supernatural beings and what ought to be done with them or about them. You know, Las Vegas, what would Las Vegas look like in a world with vampires or werewolves? And it turns out writing that one I didn't have to make a whole lot up because there really is a production stage show called Bite